It would have been a good time to be on holidays if you were a fish, because if you were really unlucky, you may have been caught in the web of hooks and lines cast into the drink for the annual Fun Fish competition. You catching the big ones?
No.
Caught any?
No. Oh, I got a leaf.
He's caught it. I got a snag and he's got a snag.
What, have you lost many hooks?
Millions.
Mums and dads kept up the running repairs.
Always, mate. I've got to bait up for him and actually do all the dirty work.
The object of the competition was to catch, weigh and release fish if possible. There were the serious anglers and the more laid back, and others who forgot what they were fishing for.
I pulled up a bottle with a octopus in it.
Good heavens.
You might need a tougher bag, I think.
Yeah.
Hang on, just hold it like that. You're not going home on the bus, are you?
No.
And then came the big weigh-in for prizes such as rods, reels and aquarium tickets. Some anglers were all fished out, and others, like 5-year-old Chloe Staunton, a little overwhelmed by the attention her winning 600-gram bream attracted. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
And the small winemakers. Yeah. Everybody. Thank you very much, Richard. I think that the show, of course, will naturally...
The 12 teams paraded their new strips at the launch, David Lowe doing the honours for the Breakers. It's a 33-round competition, the teams playing for the Ericsson Cup with the grand final in June.
Everyone's got good reason to be positive about the upcoming season.
Final preparations are winding up at Birmingham Gardens for the Breakers clash tomorrow night against UTS Olympic. New coach John Cosmina admits it's his team's first game, but he is still expecting a good result.
You know, I want to win. I want to win the game. And I think we've got the squad that can do it. As long as we're not overawed and as long as we're patient about how we go about it, we could get a result.
And the Breakers should take note, there are some young Cosminas coming through the ranks that show a touch of their old man soccer skills. Play starts tomorrow night at 5:45 with the main game at 7:45.
Gall spent this morning sizing up his Graham Boyd supplied bike for the Thumper event. It's been 2 years since he last rode in a competitive race, and Gall now has several diverse interests. Among them, sprint cars, mountain bikes and orthopaedic knee braces, which will all take a back seat this Sunday.
It's one of the best motocross series now in Australia, bar none, even better than the Australian Motocross Championships. So Graham invited me to ride a Aberg replica 600 Yamaha, so why not? Sounds like fun.
In Newcastle, the 37th Matara Hill Climbers attracted drivers from across the state for tomorrow's race against the clock through King Edward Park. The local City Challenge starts proceedings at 10 a.m, while round 10 of the New South Wales series will take place on Sunday. And the Super Sedans will be back in action at the Newcastle Motordrome tomorrow night, with state champion John Pine unveiling his new car for the coming season.
Strategic alliances negotiated by the university are a means of developing a network. It is to our benefit to admit... we do it properly because it has to be witnessed and so on.
No pressure. Three.
Bring it back the other way. Sorry. Bring it inland.
The 22-year-old local man fell into the water when he was stepping from a dinghy onto this boat moored at Chain Valley Bay this morning. Yachtsman Max Munger went to his aid when he heard the young man's girlfriend screaming for help.
The girl was screaming and, so we rowed out from my boat, which took us about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and he was just gone.
It's believed the man suffered an epileptic fit and drowned. Distraught family looked on as friends and police conducted a search for his body.
Obviously, people have to take care on the waterways, but I believe this was just an accident that probably couldn't be avoided.
Fishermen used a net to drag the area but found nothing. Late this afternoon, police divers recovered his body. The man's name has not been released.
"43 cars took on the windy 1.1 kilometre circuit today with the field restricted to locals. Open wheelers set the pace with Hamilton's Elfin roaring up the steep incline in 45.77 seconds, half a second ahead of Ben Morley in his Reynard. The top 10 all qualified for a shootout late this afternoon, with Morley reversing the result. Tomorrow, defending champion Peter Finlay returns to contest the 10th round of the State Hill Climb Series.
This was a boat built by a family in an attempt to overcome the heartache of losing a son. 22-year-old Ron Holmes was hit by a car and killed on the nearby Pacific Highway last year. Yesterday, his younger brother Phil, an epileptic, suffered a seizure as he was boarding the boat. He fell into the water and couldn't be reached by his girlfriend in a dinghy. His body was found 5 hours later.
I'd hope that anyone that does suffer from epilepsy in any form, that they take it a bit more seriously than what my son did. He seemed to think that he didn't have it bad enough and nothing would happen to him, but he had it bad enough. He died from it.
Compounding the sad irony, it's 15 months to the day that Di buried her son Ron. Now it's been revealed that Phil and his girlfriend were expecting their first child. Diane is well known in the area for her campaign for increased manning of ambulances on the Central Coast after the death of her son Ron. The family is shattered by the loss of a second son.
Young men seem to think they're invincible. I think that's why the death rate of that age group is just so high. They think they're invincible, and they're not. None of us are.
If Alumino is successful in the case before the Land and Environment Court, this 9-hectare block will be the site of a $26 million dross smelter. That decision rests in the hands of Justice Talbot, who inspected the block today. Interested locals were not allowed to join the contingent, which included the judge, Alumino's lawyer and Cole Mabry from the Concerned Residents Group. The inspection was part of a half-day visit to the town, which also included a tour of local schools and residential areas that may be affected by a smelter. Alumino is attempting to overturn the decision of the former Minister for Planning that effectively stopped the development. The hearing began in the Land and Environment Court in Sydney last Monday, and it could finish by the end of the week. Justice Talbot is expected to give his decision early next month. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Leask was one of 235 entrants to test himself around the 2-kilometre natural terrain course, finishing ahead of Lyndon Heffernan and Jamie Cunningham. The win allowed him to leapfrog Glenn Bell and take the lead in the championship with one round remaining in Kempsey. Motocross legend Steve Gall came out of retirement for the event, finishing second and third in his first two races, but suffered mechanical problems and failed to complete his final race. Locals Darren Wilden, David Cocking, Glenn Lomas, Chris Watson and Greg Nicholson all had some success throughout the day. Meantime, locals also captured 3 of the 9 classes at the Australian Sprint Kart titles in Tamworth. Thornton's Brendan May took out the Junior Light title, while Terrigal's John Joyce captured the Senior Light division. Black Hills' Adam Clark completed a good day for the region, taking out the Senior Clubman.
"22-year-old Lisa Craig and her 28-year-old boyfriend James Mangian were found dead yesterday morning at Warners Bay, where they had been visiting friends. Tests are being carried out by police, but it's believed both may have died from an overdose of lethal heroin. Police are investigating reports that a potent batch of the drug is circulating the Newcastle area, possibly originating from Cabramatta in Sydney. Ambulance paramedics say there's been an alarming rise in the number of people needing treatment for heroin overdoses in the past few days.
The ambulance service in the last couple of days has been called to a number of incidences, and these have been particularly related to heroin, which is very disappointing in the Newcastle area.
It was first thought Lisa and Jamie's deaths may have been a double suicide. Jamie Mangian led a troubled life, confined to a wheelchair after he was shot by his father. His brother originally took the blame for the shooting. Lisa's parents knew their daughter was involved in drugs. They say she was a sweet girl who was trapped by circumstance. They've warned other heroin users to be aware of the dangers.
She didn't commit suicide, and all I'm saying is whoever's using heroin, don't touch the stuff, because the stuff that's getting around now, it's dangerous. It's killing a lot of people.
Someone's dealing bad heroin and they've got to be stopped. From what we can gather is the heroin was bought from Cabramatta, and they're classing it as Cabramatta rock or something or other, and these people have got to be stopped somehow.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. Tourism Minister Brian Langton was literally held up at gunpoint, but it was all in the name of promoting the region. The Cobb & Co stagecoach robbery was part of the festivities at a property near Marywar to mark the opening of the Hunter connection of the Bushman's Way. It's a tourist drive from Sydney to Newcastle and on to places such as Marywar, Dunedoo, Gunnedah, Tamworth, Muswellbrook and Singleton. The Minister says tourism in Australia generates tens of thousands of dollars a minute and claims the industry has the ability to revive the economies of struggling country towns. The Bushman's Way will include old-fashioned country hospitality amidst the gum trees and shearing sheds, as well as a special art gallery featuring Aboriginal works. Amanda Bolger, NBN News. "73-year-old Robert Rourke was found murdered at Morisset Hospital in June last year. A plastic bedsheet had been wrapped around his neck and his legs tied together. Charged with his murder is 81-year-old Ernest Gregg. Both men were patients in the dementia ward. Mr Gregg was noticed by a nurse standing near a bed where the body of Mr Rourke was found. In court today, Detective Senior Constable Craig Miller, who attended the hospital, told of a conversation he had with Mr Gregg that night. He said, "A man was found dead in your bed a short time ago. Do you know anything about it?" Mr Gregg allegedly replied, "If a man is in somebody's bed, well, that's what happens. I don't stop anybody from sleeping around, but not in my bed." After looking at Mr Gregg's hands, Detective Miller said, "How did you get the blood on your hands?" Mr Gregg replied, "I was cutting dog meat today and the blood must have got on then." Throughout the proceedings, Mr Gregg has sat quietly in the gallery with his family. A jury has already found him unfit to be tried. This special hearing is to determine whether he committed the crime, but it's not a trial in the ordinary sense. Jodie McKay, NBN News. After almost 12 months of planning and $1.5 million, the finishing touches are being applied to the Harbourside Centre at Queen's Wharf. The complex features a restaurant, a takeaway shop, a gourmet pizza eatery, as well as a function area to accommodate 700 people. It's hoped the cluster of restaurants will entice people into the city centre.
Newcastle CBD certainly needs something to bring people in. We believe that we're offering something now that can attract people in here, complement the brewery, complement the other restaurants that are around here, and people love to come in along the foreshore, and we're offering something different.
Managers say there has been no shortage of applicants for the hospitality positions.
We had about 300 applications for positions down here. We envisage we'll put between 90 and 100 people on. Eventually we'll put 55 on now, but we were absolutely flooded.
Newcastle already boasts a wide range of restaurant choices. Mr Roberts says the latest developments will add to the city's growing reputation.
The growth in the industry in Newcastle has been phenomenal, and I think it'll continue, probably rationalise over a period of time. But I think Newcastle people are starting to eat out more, and it's certainly a growth industry.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Even in the Newcastle region, something like $2 billion a year is spent by state, local and federal governments just to buy things.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. And our 1,000th patient is a very honoured lady, and we've given you a certificate to acknowledge it. Thank you. Okay.
The plane from Sydney Harbour Seaplanes was towed in at Long Jetty on the Central Coast around 10 this morning. Pilot Vin Vaughan was taking a passenger on a regular flight from Rose Bay in Sydney to Newcastle Harbour when he noticed something was wrong.
A bit of a bang and things started to slow down. So you just got to adjust a few things and track for a sort of safe landing area.
He cruised onto Tuggerah Lake with smoke pouring from the engine caused possibly by an oil leak from a cylinder.
It just goes to show how good they are. They sort of run on 8 cylinders instead of 9.
Emergency crews had been on standby, but no one was injured in the landing. Engineers from the company inspected the plane this afternoon. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Wallabies were always in control, a 43 points to 26 victory for the world champions.
The family of Robert Rourke, who was found murdered at Morisset Hospital in June last year, hold no anger toward the man accused of his killing. They have offered Ernest Gregg's family understanding and support. They know what it's like to have a father who suffers dementia, and the two families have become tragically intertwined, fighting a battle to improve the standard of care for dementia sufferers.
It should never, ever have been allowed to happen. Dad was placed under the care of the health system, if you put it that way, and the health system has let us down.
Each day, Mr. Gregg has been brought to court by his family. He sat quietly in the gallery, unaware of the serious charge against him. Today, when the jury found him not guilty of murder on the grounds of mental illness, Mr. Gregg was asleep on his son's lap.
He's guilty, but because he's mental, well, we'll say that he's not guilty on the grounds of mental illness. We don't accept that at all. Our father's not a murderer.
Both families blame the health system for the situation they now face. Their fathers were locked in a ward the night of the murder and weren't constantly checked. When staff did investigate, they found Mr. Rourke strangled with a plastic sheet and Mr. Gregg standing by his body.
If they've got problems with patients, why do they sort of leave them unattended in this way that these things can happen?
We put my father into Morisset to be looked after. We never expected this to happen.
The families are taking the matter further. They've also requested an inquest. Mr. Gregg was today returned to Morisset Hospital's Kestrel wing, a unit where some of the state's most violent psychiatric prisoners are kept. His son was not allowed to travel with him.
He married and raised a family and went off to war and fought for this country. And now when this country sort of should be supporting him, they're just denying that support. That's wrong. of that, where that don't worry about it.
Had a water main break, and as a result we've had to relay water from the nearby creek to maintain the supply for the pumping units.
The state's dropped the charges on low alcohol beer to encourage drinkers to switch from the full strength brew. It was meant to allow drinkers to consume the same amount of beer, but with reduced health and social repercussions. But New South Wales has the lowest rate of drinkers of light beer in the country. The government claims that's because pubs and clubs are not passing the saving on to customers. Instead, they're subsidising the price of full strength beer.
People who choose to drink low alcohol beer, they should be able to purchase it at what the proper price is.
It's claimed a schooner of light should be 70 cents cheaper than a full strength beer, and a carton should be $8 less. But the Australian Hotels Association says independent studies show that the tax savings are half that, with the average schooner of light supposed to be 35 cents less.
It's a heck of a big difference, but if I'm really forced into it, I'm going to have to do what the late Sid Einfeld, who was the pioneer of consumerism, and name a few of these places, because in fact it is a complete rip-off.
And if outing doesn't work, the worst case scenario for beer drinkers could become reality, the reintroduction of taxes on low alcohol beer.
That's something we'll have a look at, and once again, it's not an idle threat. If they don't pass it on, well, we'll have a look at the tax again.
A hotline will be established so drinkers can dob in publicans who aren't trading in the spirit of the legislation. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It was a loud and colourful start to the annual fiesta as groups representing dozens of countries danced and pranced through Beaumont Street. The entertainment ranged from belly dancers to bagpipes, a reflection of the Hunter's diverse cultural heritage. More than 1 in 10 people in this region come from non-English speaking backgrounds, with 66 languages spoken throughout the Hunter. But language is no barrier, the hardest part of the day trying to work out which planet these guys came from. But the fun is far from over with a world music concert at Gregson Park tonight. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.